Hello, everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of Circuit 42. I am your host, Ian, and I am here with Michael the Wizard Martinez.
Hello, I'm in
Yeah,
HD now.
I know
You can see everything.
my camera's boopy. I'm gonna be getting a better camera later, so yeah. But we've had a brief snippet since we are now going to be discussing episode 3 and 4 of X-Men 97, and it's basically just a way to kind of get everybody caught up. So let me get that prepped, so we get that all ready for everybody. And hold on.
This is fucking macking me.
No, actually, no. I did that enough during the or during the MCU series. I'm not gonna do that to you again.
Thank God.
Previously on X-Men.
Jesus
Jesus
fucking
fucking
Christ.
Christ.
Eric! Like,
Where's my gun?
All right. So that pretty much caught up everybody for the next for episode 3 and 4 of X-Men 97.
I hope you're fucking proud.
I am.
Jen, run away.
Well, she's downstairs.
So she's already got a head start. That's good.
Great.
Um,
Yes, I'm showing some X-Men swag that will look a lot better when I get the new camera. The poster on the left, the print on the left is Storm by Tyler Kirkham. Or left, right, who
nice.
knows on the camera.
Wait until we got the HD shit going, and then maybe
Yeah.
you'll be able to do like the zoomy thing. You'll have like
And
some Tony Stark shit where you be like, "Ugh, ugh."
oh well, the one next to it um is signed by is X-Men print local artist, signed by him and signed by Larry Houston, Erica Julie LeWald, signed by Lenore Zan, signed by Cal Dodd, and signed by Tony Daniel, the second Gambit.
Nice.
In addition, it is also signed by George George Bauza, I don't know. Beast from X-Men.
Nice. Speaking of people who are, becoming somewhat fancy with the fancy cast people, so I took some pictures. I'll dabble like in taking pictures of action figures and whatnot, and I'm trying to get to I'm trying to like boost up my stuff, unfortunately, because it's like really hard to compete on Instagram and like get yourself out on the algorithm. So I've been like boosting my shit. And my most recent post was like related to episode 5, which we'll get to later. Obviously, we have to get to it because it was so fucking insane and so good. But I took a picture, like kind of based off of like one of the more popular frames from the show, and I got a like from the voice actor from Up Gambit. So that was pretty awesome. I don't know how to
Nice.
say his name. AJ Lacascio?
I think it's AJ Lucasio.
Yeah, you're the name guy. I almost forgot you have that you got that skill in your back pocket.
No, I'm the guy who looks up phonetic pronunciations on Google and before a show.
You're the research guy. Yeah.
Yeah. 5 minutes before the show. Super research.
Okay. So I know as much as we want to talk about like episode 5 and how crazy it was, we
What
still
is this
had
episode 5? We are a week before that. We're talking about
yeah.
nothing bad will happen, sir.
Yep. So episode 3, Fire Made Flesh, I believe it was called. Yeah.
I have words about this episode, and I'm interested to see how you and I see this episode.
Okay, because like yeah, it's like really this is such the good thing about it is because we've talked about this before. You're like the more hardcore like '90s X-Men fan. I didn't
It's
I wasn't as
80s in this
involved.
case.
'80s, late '80s, early '90s X-Men.
No, this was like mid. This was like mid 80s.
Really?
This was pre Jim Lee.
I'm mid '80s, sir.
Inferno. This is pre. This is like Silvestri era. Um,
They are moving through it then. Shit.
yeah, because well, actually, yeah, because people don't realize that the initial Genosha storyline that was a Claremont story before. That was a really Claremont story where they started hinting at Madeline Pryor, and they finally showed the other side of Madeline Pryor. They actually introduced it during the original Genosha story.
Good shit. Good shit.
Yeah, and that was before Extinction Agenda, because most people think of Genosha, they think of Extinction Agenda, but Genosha was actually introduced like long before. Excuse me.
Oh yeah. The X-Men have like a bad history with islands. Um, it was kind of interesting because I was kind of I actually remember when I told you that I thought about I went to a birthday party over the weekend. It was like a birthday party for nerds where we presented PowerPoints to each other. And so I presented a PowerPoint about the MCU and kind of dipped into like fan theories related to X-Men 97. So people were asking me a little bit afterwards about the show and about the X-Men, and I was telling them about kind of the interesting thing is, talking about the X-Men and the islands. So they essentially like started this show kind of skipping past like Krakoa in how it initially appeared and when they were establishing the new X-Men. And it was kind of interesting to see like how they like cherry picked and like how
Well,
they brought in different elements from different eras. So this was definitely another example of that. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We should talk about Fire Made Flesh.
yep. So we're starting with episode 3 of season 1, Fire Made Flesh. Um, my predictions were all correct regarding Madeline Pryor.
Fancy.
My predictions regarding her backstory was a little bit more truncated. But for everyone who says, "Oh, they should have had this, and this," it's like if to have had that and to get to where we are right now, this would have taken us 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Because if we're going by timeline, that would mean we're literally jumping from the 80s into the early 2000s. And you'd basically have to stretch out everything for 5, 10, 15 years worth of storytelling. And the theme, I'm going to go off on a brief aside. One of my favorite Harry Potter movies is Harry Potter 3, Prisoner of Azkaban. I love Prisoner of Azkaban. Do you know why?
Why?
Because that movie is like, hey, all this random happenstance that happens that doesn't actually help the flow of the story, let's cut it. Let's cut the part where this character randomly talks to this character about Wizards and Bob. Let's cut that because it doesn't do anything for the story. Let's not make it obvious that we're doing it, but let's move with forward momentum instead of just sitting there. Because 1 and 2 are kind of the worst Harry Potter movies because they're too accurate to what they were based on because they
Hmm.
aren't being adapted. If you tried to tell a comic book storyline that spanned over three major events and tried to fit it all within this, it would not fit for Payson at all. Like to give you an idea, you can start at John Romita's X-Men, and then you go all the way through Mark Silvestri's X-Men till the end, basically to the end of it, to tell that whole story. And that's probably about 40 issues. So 40 issues of comic does not translate into a TV show without being adapted.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you were to try to adapt like Lord of the Rings.
But it still feels rushed.
Um are you talking about Harry Potter 3 or what?
I'm talking about the newest episode of X-Men.
Uh
But it could be
so
it can end up apply to both.
did you think this felt rushed then?
I did.
Yeah. Did you
It's a
is it because did you um so it starts out right and this like it ended episode 2 with this other Jean Grey popping up and then essentially Beast like carbon dates him and he's just like this Jean Grey that we've been hanging with that Scott's been pumping babies into is a clone, and she does not handle it well, as you know, as you can imagine. So I'm guessing the reason why it felt rushed to you as somebody who was like familiar with how it was handled in the comics is that I'm guessing they drew out Madeline Pryor as a villain a lot more.
No,
No?
no, it didn't. They
What?
make her a fully fleshed out character because they don't make it a twist that that Jean hasn't been there. Jean dies after Dark Phoenix, and Jean doesn't
Yeah.
die in Dark Phoenix in the animated series. And they introduce her as a character. They fully flesh out the relationship with her and Cyclops. Cyclops was supposed to leave the team in the original
Yeah.
Blind storyline, but Jim Shooter's otherwise because he wanted to have just the OG X-Men because that was the ones he grew up with. Because clearly, nostalgia always makes the best choices, right, Jeff Jones? Um, just you know, screw all that stuff. Got to keep the stuff I remember. Not that any creators do that, not J.J. Abrams or any of them. They never do anything like that. It's always professionals and good storytelling. But in the case of this, basically you had an editor in chief with too much power. And we took a character that was supposed to be just a regular person and we turned them into like this big evil character. But Claremont took his time. Claremont actually was like, no, she's actually tragic. And they let you know her, they let her be a part of the X-Men. She was pretty much their woman of the chair for the team. And so when all this happened and when Inferno happens, it really sucks because it's like, no, you were good. You were genuinely trying to help people. And there's a moment in X Factor where she gets separated, where Cyclops, all of the memory, like Madeline just disappears. And everyone's like, where's Madeline? Who are you talking about? This person doesn't exist. And then that's what leads into Inferno, when all of a sudden she reappears and you find out the backstory regarding Mr. Sinister.
So looking at it right now, because I'm trying to figure out, maybe you just know, how long was Madeline Pryor around,
Let's
like
see.
as Jean?
Well, she was never Jean.
Yeah, that.
Let's see. Madeline Pryor first appearance.
So she was
Matt.
it. So as somebody who's like I said, I didn't read it back in the day. So she was actually introduced herself as Madeline Pryor, and she just happened to look exactly like Jean. Is that what happened?
Yeah, and even the other characters like what the muffins.
So
But
that's fuck man. Did you see shit, what was it? Beer Fest?
oh no, I know.
Beer Fest
But here's the
where fucking
but
Landfill dies and then it's just like his brother who looks exactly like him.
but I give them credit because the way they actually drew her, she's not a 1-to-1.
Okay.
Like
It's
if you look
like
at like yeah, she's a redhead who looks similar, but she's not a 1-to-1. They show her more in other scenes later on. It's the
I can
difference. It's the
I
Superman. It's the Clark Kent versus Superman.
I can definitely see like though like why they made the change that they did because like that's kind of stupid.
But she was
Let's just
around. But here's the
admit that
thing:
that's a little dumb.
she was around for 72 issues.
I mean, that's cool, but that doesn't make it not dumb, I would say, to be like, she looks pretty much like this other woman. I can understand, like, if like you have a type, like people obviously have a type, but
But
still,
But that's her in her first appearance.
it's like, yeah, it's like they're saying, like the whole deal with like the fucking Superman glasses. And it's like the same way, like here, when they're kind of like they're almost making fun of it in the show because they're like, oh, one of them wears their hair down and one of them wears their hair up.
Oh, speaking of
They're
which,
different.
we are going to mention the intro for episode 4 because that
Yeah.
was very clever.
So they
Because
yeah, they
it's
switched it
been
back.
changed with every episode.
But okay, so does that mean that you didn't like episode 3?
I liked episode 3.
Huh.
Episode 3 was really cool. It was fucking creepy.
Was it because of the horror elements that were pretty well done?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And my criticism of it though The show is doing two things. One thing that's really good, but I can see how this could affect families trying to get their younger viewers into the show, like their kids and such. Because the show is clearly growing with the fans, which is awesome because that never happens. But
Except for like Avatar and Legend of Korra.
I'm talking about the fact that there's a 30-year gap and they know how old their fans are now. And they know how old the fans are who grew up on the animated series. And they're not dumbing it down. They're like, there's still that cheese to it that's always been there.
Yeah.
But in terms of tone and content, this is clearly being written for the adult audience who grew up on the animated series as opposed to just trying to make just trying to continue the animated series, which I think is the better way to do it. But
Yeah.
this episode really did prove my point of you can't necessarily introduce kids who are the same age, like the kids of those people who grew up on those shows. This episode proves that because it's a
Yeah.
really cool episode. It's really dark and it's really creepy, and there's some Cronenberg shit.
This episode was kind of like it sucks because it's like this episode in terms of playing with like a horror element in the X-Men's world was kind of like better than the entirety of New Mutants, which is kind of like how
And I
the
don't
movie
mind
was
that movie. That
pitched.
honestly,
I
New
don't mind it
Mutants is
either,
underrated.
but at the same time, it's not that New Mutants was the worst thing ever. It's just that this was just better. Um, so
It
all
really,
the elements and kind of like it really, I'm glad that it kind of showed. We saw elements of like what happens when a psychic really tries to like fuck with people in the original show. Wolverine had his whole like freak out with the scorpions, and that kind of, if I recall correctly, that fucked him up for a while.
can we talk
So,
about that by the way? Because people make fun of that clip, and we're like, you and I are from Arizona.
dude, if I
Can,
see a scorpion, I haven't seen like I don't think I've seen like a single like live scorpion, and that is very much like on purpose. Um, I did see a snake once, like as a child on my grandmother's farm, and I don't remember running from where I was to the front door. I really felt like I literally bamfed from where I was, and I just remember bam, like at the door. So
and
I don't fuck with the weird little wildlife. Fuck that shit.
okay, I've got a story to tell. 9 years old, new home that my family bought, new construction all around it in Albuquerque, Phoenix,
Yeah,
Scorpion
that
City.
was like old Awatuki, wasn't it? Like now it is like just full of, what's the word? It's been gentrified, basically. It's been
Oh,
gentrified up the ass.
it was pretty
So
polished back. It was pretty polished back then. Not gonna lie, not polished to the point of scummy like it is now, but all white Tukey was a thing for a little while. Um, but when you see a scorpion, you crawl out of your backpack
fuck
in your
that.
room,
Fuck that.
and you're 9.
Nope.
Yeah. So for anyone who makes fun of the covered a scorpion scene, make fun of the fact that Gene is calling this old weird wizard lady mommy. That's kind of fucked up and weird and kind of funny. But the scorpion thing, nah, fuck that noise. If you're in Arizona
Yeah.
seeing the show, you're like, no, I don't care. Wolverine's reaction is valid if understated.
So but it does kind of, so there's a lot that actually does happen in this episode. There's a lot that really fucking happens. So like they have to deal with the fact that like this Jean is like a clone. She has like her own little freak out. She has to deal with the fact that Scott is like not, he's gonna, this is the thing that kind of bugs me about Cyclops. And I love Cyclops. Cyclops is he's my fucking dog. But he's always at his best when he's in charge, when he doesn't have like a safety net of another leader like Xavier and Magneto around, because he's always more sure of himself because he has to be. So he gets really like wishy-washy when he does have that safety net, and he gets that way about everything. So like when it gets even worse when he introduces the fact that like, oh, I just had a baby with the clone of my of my wife, or is this even my wife? Did I marry a clone? What's happening? And he doesn't handle it very well. And um, there's a lot about this episode that he does not handle very well. Um, so they're dealing with that. Um, so Madeline is having to, come to grips with that because essentially, like the Gene and her have like intermingled, like memories, and they can't like figure out like who's real and whatnot, even though like Beast is clearly telling her like, you're kind of the clone, bitch, and she's having a really hard time with it, and then she freaks out, and she has like these flashes and hears like Sinister's voice as she's trying to like comfort herself with withholding Nathan. So it's a lot that's happening. And this was actually, I believe it was previewed in an earlier episode, wasn't it? She had like a little flash thingy when she was trying to do like a Gyrick. She was trying
Yeah,
to do a little mind probe and it kind of backfired and she had like her own little like Sarah Connor moment. So that was kind of a hint of like what's to come, but at the same time, she also heard like some cackling. I believe it was like Sinister. So for the folks who don't remember, and I think we touched on this briefly in the last episode, but like Sinister showed up and he was trying to like get the baby of Scott and Jean because he thought it would produce like a superior like mutant line.
basically, Sinister's got Sinister.
Yeah. So this was his way of finally doing that, which was like a really like weird, like fucked up way. I'm like, dude, like just can you not just like steal one of Scott's condoms or something like that? You've got all this technology at your disposal. You definitely have like some kind of like shrinking mutant who can like sneak in there and get some shit. But anyway, this was like a really long, drawn out way of fucking doing it, man. Um,
This is the
so
Sinister way. You clearly have not read enough Sinister content if you think this is the
no,
one he's writing
I've
on.
read some, but like the Sinister content that I read is like more like modern, where they kind of like jokerize him a little bit. Um, this is a little bit more like methodical. So this is more like Doctor Doom rather than Joker
Yeah,
or Lex Luthor.
I will say I still prefer this take on Sinister.
I feel like
I
we're definitely going to see others though,
I know. Well, one of the I mean,
with everything that's going on in the comics right now.
the only one who can the only writer who can do Camp Sinister well is the guy who created Camp Sinister, and that's Kieran Gillen.
Was he the one who was doing all the he's been writing him though, right? Like in I think he was like in Hellions. Was that him
No,
writing
that was
Hellions
Zeb
or no?
Wells, and I love Zeb Wells. Zeb Wells is
Oh,
awesome,
okay,
except when
okay.
he's doing Spider-Man. Then Zeb Wells is trash. But oh, seriously, why is his Amazing
That's
Spider-Man run so
that's
bad?
not going to be the way to get Zeb Wells on the show, by the way.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
you're just like, oh, tragedy.
Oh no, he's amazing. I want to have him on the show. I will just not talk about X-Men with him because I will be kind.
Um, no, but like, but the stupid thing is like, why does Sinister always like want to fuck with the people who always like fuck him up the most? He always wants to dick with like Scott Summers, and he's like, Scott Summers, my one weakness. Why do I keep fucking with him?
Because it's like, dude, motherfucking, you made those glasses because you knew when he was a kid he could hurt you, which
It's
is fucked up. He's the reason that those glasses are there. It's like, hey, you brain damaged little moppet, here, wear these glasses so you won't kill me.
You would think that he would have done something else. Like like if
I don't
anyway,
know why they don't let me
Sinister
write X-Men.
is I mean that's why he's called Mr. Sinister, not like Mr. Intelligent. He he has like the most convoluted, like fucked up plans, and they always end up backfiring, which happens here when,
Except for Nathan, where it kind of worked out in a way.
I guess.
But the
But
fucked up
like
way
I
is
said,
he didn't intend to do it.
yeah, so like he ends up like using Madeline to attack the X-Men. She freaks out. She turns on them for a little bit, kind of shows them like what like a psychic slash telekinetic can do when they are evil. Um, and she and Nathan ended up getting stolen by Sinister, and Sinister tries to like improve this already alpha fucking Aryan baby and try infects him with like a techno organic virus, which will eventually give us, old man Josh Brolin. So we've got that. And also Madeline has like she gets like a one-on-one. She fights Jean Grey. Jean Grey's like invoking like her Phoenix shit. Um, it's getting real. And then Madeline also kind of realizes, like she uses the power of love to break Sinister's spell. I don't remember. Like, so was that part of it in the comics too back then? Did they have like the whole like diamond thing on the forehead back then too, or is that
It's
like a
been
modern
so long
thing?
since I've read Inferno, but
Okay.
I will say this: the whole comic was more like, "Oh, Sinister, you think you control this shit? Okay, I have a fucking demon that I'm dealing with who also is inferior to me. Like Goblin Queen is like ridiculously powerful
Yeah. And
and clearly the mother of the year. It's like I'm
so
gonna sacrifice his baby. Because shut up.
it was like fucking Dogma with shit, what's his name? Uh fucking fucking Azrael. He's just like, I'm a fucking demon.
Still
That's
better than
that's her whole thing.
still better than
And
still better than Azrael in the X-Men. Where's Hazel?
yeah, we don't talk about him. Um so and it ends up like she breaks the spell with like the power of love, right?
Yeah.
And ends up, just it's kind of random. I mean, sure. I mean, one name is as good as the other, but she leaves and she's like, "Oh, I'm Madeline Pryor. You can call me Madeline Pryor now." And then also,
Well, it's because
oh,
they gotta wrap it up real fast.
the little the bitch move of Cyclops in that goddamn episode where he's just like, I can't abandon my child.
Bye.
And then and then they're just like, yeah, but we really need to do this. We need to send him to the future. And he's just like,
It's like, dude, your baby will die otherwise. And the funny thing is, I kind of get it, but I'm like, dude, do you like having a dead baby or a not dead baby?
and also the stupid thing. I can't believe they fucking wrote him like this, but I guess they had to for like the story to happen. But he's like, you guys don't understand what it's like to be abandoned as a child. And he's just like surrounded by people who probably got abandoned by their family.
Yeah.
And it's like, read the room, man. Like we're all here because we're essentially abandoned by our families. Our families disowned us. You're not the only one with daddy issues in the room, Scott. Settle down. You fucking drama queen. I love you, Scott, but god damn it, get it together. And then he's just like, I can't do this. It's too hard. And just like
Leaves.
bitch runs out of the room like fucking Cindy from goddamn, scary movie. Just so
And then they left Bishop with a baby.
yeah. And then they gave Bishop the baby, and then they would grow up and hate each other forever.
I'm sorry, I had to. I know that's not Bishop. I know that's not Cable. I know it's Hope Summers. What was with Messiah Complex? It's like here's one of the best X-Men stories of all time. Fuck Bishop. It's like why?
Reasons.
It's
Um,
like, otherwise, perfect story, and then like, Bishop should just kill babies. It's like, really?
and it was also kind of weird that like this was like their way. This is how we like they essentially lost Bishop because Bishop had to take him in the future. He said like the my little thingy, my little time travel device only has enough charge for me and the baby. So we gotta go.
I actually appreciate it because the fact that they tied it because they actually gave Bishop a reason for being there in X-Men 97.
But then they kind of, you know,
Okay, come on, come on.
bye.
There's we're not. And the thing is, as an X-Men fan, as X-Men fans, we know that they're coming back. But if you don't know your history with the X-Men, this feels like we're trying to shove all the POC characters out of the show.
I wasn't gonna say that, but then with our girl Storm getting depowered and then, having to run away to, figure her shit out. That was, yeah, it does kind of feel that way, but it would feel that way if you were like a casual observer and didn't like understand like the
Also,
creators behind the show.
they're still light skinning the fuck out of Sunspot.
No,
But
man,
the comics did that first, so there you go.
that makes it okay.
Yeah, sure.
So, speaking of Sunspot, Let's start talking about episode 4, which gets into
I
life
liked
death.
episode 4 so much, and so many people
So
complained
that
about it.
was that yeah, that was the thing though, because like I'm looking at IMDb right now and it is the lowest rated episode.
I
Uh
liked it.
so episode 1, 8.4, episode 2, 9.1 with Magneto doing his Magneto shit.
The
Episode
drama
3,
dramas.
Fire Made Flesh, 8.6, even higher than the premiere. Episode 4, 7.2.
And I'm gonna tell you right why right now. Because these are I hate when people call an episode that has to do with character development a filler
Filler.
episode. Because I'm like, characters need development. Jubilee didn't have development for 5 years. And that's why everyone
Uh,
hates her.
she was like fucking Burt Ward, Robin.
I don't
Um,
like anyone who knows the comics knows that she got all sorts of character development and had sexy vampires, but that's not important right now. Um,
I think maybe you're a little biased towards sexy vampires.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir. Shut your mouth. Um,
What is this always comes back to like your weird fetishes.
I don't know what kind of Claremont wizard you're talking about, sir.
Anyway, so like I can get why people didn't like this one as much. Especially because like I'm not a huge Jubilee fan. And I don't think that's just because, I didn't read like the 90s X-Men as much as, I started to get into it around,
Why do people keep calling her a 90s X-Men? She was made in the late 80s.
because she's so 90s, man. Look at her. Come on.
Eh.
Come on. And also like she gets associated with fucking Generation X, that lovely little movie.
We
Um
don't talk about the Generation X movie. I am a fan of
so
the comics. We don't talk about the movie, and
So
fuck you
I
for
think
mentioning it.
maybe also, so that let's just to unpack it a little bit. I also think that maybe I don't like her as much because I like if I were to pick like a younger X-Men to like integrate and to like be like the viewer's eyes, I would pick Kitty Pryde over Jubilee 11 times out of 10, and I don't apologize for it.
The problem is in the X-Men with the 90s, they weren't doing anything with Kitty Pryde. They basically just shoved her over to the like only Alan Davis cared about Kitty Pryde back in the 90s. And it was awesome because Alan Davis's Excalibur was amazing. And then Warren Ellis cared about her just enough to not research her age. So apparently 17-year-old Kitty Pryde, who he assumed was in the late her 20s, was in a relationship with 30-year-old Pete Wisdom. But the more we know about Warren Ellis, the more sense that makes. Yeah, fucking
Um,
creep.
so speaking of people that are not really accurate to their age, so this is supposed to be Jubilee's 18th birthday. And so
I
for those
know.
of us who grew up watching this show back in the 90s, and then all of a sudden it's like 25 years later and she is 18 years old. It just really reminded me of that scene in Bad Boys where that guy rolls up trying to date his daughter and he's like, "How old are you?" He's like, "You are at least 30." She,
That's
come on,
not
like
fair.
Jubilee has grandchildren. Let's not pretend like she doesn't, collect Social Security at this point. So there, she's playing this 18-year-old. Okay, cool. But I do appreciate the fact, like we talked about before, that they introduced Sunspot so that way it kind of forces Jubilee to grow up a little bit and kind of mentor him a little bit. So that's nice to see that part of her character develop. I think also maybe another reason why people might not have liked this episode because like this is about like, Mojo,
You
and
hate Mojo.
I do. Mojo is just
You hate Mojo so much. It makes me sad. I
he's
love
just,
Mojo because he's campy and stupid.
yeah, but we already have Arcade for like everything that he does.
I know, but Mojo is literally just Chris Claremont and Innocenti being like, fuck you, corporate assholes. Fuck you, Hollywood producers. Fuck you, comic book publishers. This is what we think of you. You're Mojo.
I guess it's just I don't know. I'm just like not a
I
big
I love
Mojo
the gal
dude.
of a character design for writers for creative people to make fun of their bosses.
Yeah, I mean I could see that part. This was also kind of like this almost felt like the new Jumanji movie. That series with, you know, people getting like trapped like in a video game and shit. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that. They got to play with the idea of like digital avatars because like a digital like Jubilee, who's kind of like been like the beta tester version of Jubilee.
Oh, we've had it. We're going to talk about that later because that's
Yeah,
actually yeah.
that was pretty cool. I did like that part. It's just like I guess I want to say because I'm trying to like get at like why this was like a little bit of a lull.
And I'm
And it
assuming you
wasn't it
recognize. I'm assuming you recognize her voice.
yeah. So Avatar, the original one, or like
Absissa,
the yeah, she was actually voiced by the original Jubilee, correct?
Allison Court. Yep.
Yeah. So that was a nice little cameo. It's nice to see that we're still getting to see you know, the old guard show up. It's pretty awesome.
It
And they're
does make me
still
really appreciate Beau DeMaio, and it makes me really dread when we eventually reach the end of Beau DeMaio's run because her character is literally a one-off character from an issue of Wolverine by Larry Hama and not Chris Claremont, Larry Hama and Mark Silvestri, where she is a version of Jubilee from an alternate reality that got stuck in Mojo World and never left it. So a lot of people think this is a character they created for the show as a way to do a true throwback to Allison Court, and it kind of is. But the fact that the writer of the show just knew about this character from one issue of Wolverine and was like, "No, we're gonna make this work," and I'm like, "Shit!" I am really kind of dreading when Beau DeMaio's work on X-Men late '97 ends.
yeah, and I'd actually I was talking a little bit about that with my wife earlier and how there have been especially after episode 5 a lot of people were just like holy shit, this is like really awesome. Who did this shit? How much of this did he write? How much of it was he, you know, creatively driving? Like how much of a like a drop should we expect in terms of like quality and like being in tune with these characters for the next seasons that have already been greenlit? And I've seen, you know, posts on, you know, social media, people are asking those questions and he's actually starting to chime in now and he's just like,
All of
I
it.
wrote fucking all of it. So, like I said, if I was petty, which I really, really am, and if I was James Gunn, I would hire his ass immediately and lock him up and get him to write like a Teen Titans movie or get him to do literally anything but go back to Marvel.
Oh,
So
sorry. Continue.
go ahead.
I just gotta give credit to David Origo, the voice actor for Mojo, because he is also Banshee, Leech, and Mojo.
Huh.
Yeah, that's the
It's a
same dude.
that's a nice little like variance.
Yeah.
He doesn't also do what the fuck is his name? Like uh who is like who's the guy who like rolls with Sinister and he also does like a screamy shit. What is
That's
he?
it.
What?
No, it's that, and he was a voice on the radio. And that's all.
He does that guy too?
Yeah, he's a voice on the radio, and he's Banshee, Leech, and Mojo.
No. Like he no like the evil like Banshee who rolls with Sinister. I forget. He's like a diff he
No,
has
no,
like a
no.
different name.
He was Banshee in the brief appearance in an episode that we're not going to talk about yet.
Ah, okay. So it's okay. Okay. Like it's still it's got its good parts, but I think it was also so actually this is kind of like a split, right? So if you look at the episode title, this the first half is called like Motendo, right?
Yeah, which I will
That's
say as someone who played the Sega Genesis X-Men games all the time as a kid, and I kept my PS3 because it has the X-Men arcade game on it. That was a lot of fun.
I really want to get a one of those PS3s that can play the PS2 games. but they're so
Dude,
expensive.
dude, we had some friends that we hadn't seen in like 10 years, out from New Mexico visiting us. They were here for the eclipse,
Hmm.
and the she said and she said, yeah, we've got that. We've got one of those PS3s that plays PS1s and PS2 games too. And I was like,
I've
that.
been really wanting to play like Marvel Ultimate Alliance again. So I did find it for like the Wii, and I have a Wii U. So that's like the closest as I'm gonna get right now
That
because
version sucks.
I think even the like the fucking what you call it, the PC I have the PC version of it, and it just like it's just too old now. It won't even fucking run on what I got. So okay, so this was split, right?
Yeah.
Motendo and then Life Death Part One, in which like we delve into what Storm was up to
I
after she
loved
left.
Life Death Part 1. First one was good. First one was fun. Life Death Part was just exactly what it needed to be.
There's definitely so you gotta say like if they just did like a full I'm glad that they had like the presence of mind to realize that like Motendo was not strong enough
To
to
carry a whole
stretch
half
out
hour. Yeah.
into like a whole half hour.
If it
Um
was a half an hour, I would not have liked it nearly as
yeah.
much.
Yeah. And it feels like that might have been something that they would have tried for the original run. But I mean, here they're clearly trying to get certain things done. I'm glad that they found room to do something with Jubilee, but there's definitely a big difference between, watching 15 minutes of Jubilee fuck around on Mojo World versus watching Storm come to grips with, trying to figure out who she is without her powers. Because like she has been literally worshipped as a goddess. And so people, more than one person, I believe, makes the comment to her that like she doesn't really need her powers to be a goddess. Like Storm is always portrayed as like very beautiful, very confident, very regal. So
She
to
beat
see her,
Cyclops with a knife.
she did.
Yeah.
Um, like knives are his one weakness. So in his defense, uh, knives and
And
I don't
Jean.
know, knives
Jean,
and knives and being a father are his two weaknesses.
sir, you go to the future. I don't want to deal with you.
Uh, that's one way to get out of like babysitting. But anyway, so she's having to deal with this shit. Um, and at the end, I believe it was like episode three, Forge rolled up on her. Forge is fucking cool. I'm so glad that they're using him right now. He did like how many episodes did he even show up with on the original?
Like
Only
three
like
or four.
one and a half, two, three, four. But I think
Yeah.
like there was like one where like X Factor showed up and was kind of random. We talked about it last time. There was also like a couple of ones where he showed up like in the future. Um, or, like they played around with him in like Days of Future Past a little bit. Um, and by the way, I'm almost finished with like the last season of the OG. So Forge is like trying to help Storm. And in doing so, they're taking a look at like what happened to her. They're seeing that the gun that was used on her was like very much based off of like the radiation that they used in the collars that they use
Oh,
in the original like Genosha story where they were enslaving the mutants. What's up?
can I cite real quick how perfect Gil Birmingham is as the voice of Forge?
Was he not the OG one?
He
Who was
was
the
not.
OG? Okay, okay.
But also appreciate that while he's not the same tribe as Forge, I do appreciate the fact that we still have a Comanche actor playing
Ooh,
Forge
let me look him up.
because he's actually from San Antonio.
Ah, this motherfucker.
Yep, and anyone who's seen, I'm not a Yellowstone. I'm
I
not.
gotta say this because my wife isn't here to say it, but I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not a Yellowstone guy. I haven't seen the show, but apparently the thing he was most well known
Ian,
for is
but Ian, you're white.
yeah, I know, obviously, I
You're in
know. Wait,
Texas.
yes,
What
but I do that. I make
is
fun of
that
white
not
people more
required?
than
Is that not required viewing?
I've come to a point where I realize I make fun of more white people than most other people I know.
Shit.
And
Um,
but
oh,
he is Thomas Rainwater in Yellowstone, and he was
okay.
actually in one of my favorite movies, which is actually by the creator of Yellowstone. So shut your mouth. Hell or High Water with Jeff Bridges.
They
He's a
made a movie of Scout. He was in that.
not the same Scalped. Wait, they did make a movie of Scalped. Oh
They
shit.
did like an animated movie, I think.
Um, Shit, man.
TV movie.
We're getting distracted. It's
Yeah,
cool.
but like no, like the cool thing, like because I wanted to look at his credits because like I really been noticing kind
Oh,
of
he's an
like
amazing actor.
a like a surge of native like content,
Yeah.
especially with like Echo, and with Reservation Dogs, which like I started watching and I was like, fuck, this is so good. And I'm so I'm like on like the final season. I just like started to binge it and I was like, this is coming up to the end too quickly. And now I'm like refusing to watch the final episodes. But I was just checking to see if like he showed up in either of those shows, and it doesn't look like he did, which is surprising because um it seems like a lot of those shows are using a lot of the same native actors, and I'm surprised he didn't show up in that. Because they basically got like everybody from like Reservation Dogs to be in fucking Echo and in to be like in What If, um, and to be in Killers of the Flower Moon, which by the way, Martin Scorsese.
Oh, by the way, if you haven't got a chance to see it, like this is a couple years old, but there's a movie called they did a movie based on the Turok games called Turok Son of Stone. This was back in 2008.
Mhm.
You talk about Native American resurgence in terms of casting. Yeah, yeah, freaking everyone. Like multiple generations of just kick-ass Native American actors in this.
Oh yeah, let me see. Adam Beach, yep.
And Gil
Graham.
Birmingham's also in this.
Oh yeah. Fuck yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good cast.
Yeah,
Ah,
and it's written by Tony Bedard, the comic book writer.
oh yeah, that's some good shit.
Yeah, it's
Um,
really good. You can't find it on streaming anywhere. So if you find it on DVD or Blu-ray, just buy it.
what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon. Sorry, but I didn't like it.
What? I haven't seen it yet, so I can't say a word.
It's just too fucking long, man. Like somebody needs to tell somebody needs to tell them like it's okay to cut parts of your movie
I'm a Scorsese head, man. Which
after.
means that Normie comic fans hate me.
Please tell me that you didn't like think The Irishman was actually good.
I didn't watch it because
Good.
I was just not needing to see 3 hours
It was like fucking
of
4 hours long.
terrible aging digital effects.
It was. That was bad. And like I'm just telling you, man, like he's like lost it. Um he just doesn't know how to like cut his own shit anymore. He's kind of like doing like a Ridley Scott number now. Um he's like slowly like yeah, he's like just kind of like coasting. Sorry, like he's pulling
So
a fucking Frank Miller is what he's doing.
so back to Life Death.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. So the thing that I thought was like kind of weird about Life Death is that Forge like shows up and they have this whole interaction and he's like trying to help her, right? He's trying to
Yeah,
help her like try to find a way for her to get her powers back because like she's trying to like get at how he does what he does and the way, he works because he
I
can't.
love the idea for his powers.
Yeah, like you can't like he's just like an inventor. Like his invention is like his power and that's so fucking cool.
Hmm.
I'm so glad that they're using him a lot for in the comics a lot more. It's so interesting to see, especially like with the recent like Krakoan era, to see how he uses like that organic tech. It's so neat. But here in the show, that I think that it was a little bit weird, like when they started like interacting more, is like Forge like declares his love for Storm, which I thought was a little unearned.
It's because it was rushed because they tried to put that into 15 minutes. Because they actually know each other for a while, but the thing you don't know, you kind of get hints of it. He is beyond traumatized. And when you're
Expand on
so,
that.
and well, they're going to. They're clearly hinting at it. But when he has that line of I was a soldier, there was a war," and you see the adversary who we're going to touch on. There's a lot of shit that goes down. And he is a wealthy technologist inventor. He has a big ass tower in Dallas. He chooses to never leave it 99% of the time and just stays by himself in his tower because some shit went down. So if you have a person who's so traumatized that they're like, I'm going to cut off all human interaction, and then they meet this one person who, for them, is just like everything they want. That's the kind of
I
person
get
who
that.
might actually be like, "Oh, I love you." It's like you just told me all this shit. You've known me for like a weekend, and it's like, yeah, but I
Yeah.
also am afraid to go outside and talk to people because my life is fucked. That's weirdly the most realistic shit ever. That someone who has no can't who's separated themselves from emotional attachments because of their own trauma meets this one person who's like, "Oh, you're perfect."
At the same time, though,
Yeah. But if you don't know that, it reads like weird writing.
it does, and also basically everybody loves Storm on site anyway, so it feels a,
Dracula.
li
Dracula just wanted to fuck Storm.
a little less special. Everybody wants to fuck Storm. Like Doctor Doom wants to fuck Storm, and he doesn't want to fuck anybody. So, and she basically dumped Black Panther. So yeah, I mean, she like more or less like did something that she knew was going to be like unforgivable in his eyes, and she was just like, I got to do what I got to do. Um,
I
this
get it. Black Panther's too straight laced for her.
this is why this is why she ends up, you know, shacking
Shit.
up with Wolverine.
All I'm gonna say right here.
Oh my God, like the expression on Storm's face. Damn, he looks thirsty as fuck. He looks almost as thirsty as Gambit.
And this is why Bill Sienkiewicz should draw Dracula comics like all the time. This is
He
early
looks pretty good.
Sienkiewicz when you could actually figure out what was happening. No hate to
I'm
Sienkiewicz, I still love his artwork now, but it is so abstract where I'm like, is that a foot? No,
I'm sure it's
it's a
fine.
dude.
I'm sure it's fine. Um, so they go through this whole thing, right, where he's trying to like help her almost like psychologically um deal with the loss of her powers and kind of like unlock it again in, you know, in herself, because when you think about it, there is really just like such a like a psychological component to the mutation that everybody undergoes. There's definitely been some instances where people get like the exact power that they need. Um, or like it's very heavily like tied to their personality. So he's trying to get Storm to kind of simultaneously make peace with the fact that she doesn't have powers anymore and kind of like re-trigger her powers.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a lot as far as like character driven material. This is a stark contrast with what we're seeing in the first half of this, you know, episode with Motendo. So it's obviously it's always good to see those character moments, and it kind of just like underscores how they're making more of an effort to try to give people besides Wolverine the spotlight,
Yeah.
which is always a good thing because, you know, you want to be invested in these characters, you want to be invested in their journey, and to show that they're just not relying on their names and nostalgia is really smart.
Oh, speaking of which, I'm happy to know that episode 6 is going to be called Life Death Part 2
Yeah.
and not Life Death Part 2 slash Gambit's cool epic flashback time.
But it's probably coming. So should we wrap this part of it before we get to episode 5?
Yes, let's talk about the adversary.
Okay, so like oh yeah. Okay, okay. Talk about him.
That's some fucking nightmare shit, man.
So I'm trying to so I was doing a rewatch of like the past couple episodes. I didn't get to the second half to rewatch Life Death Part 1 yet. So what I know about the adversary from the comics is like he's from Limbo, right? Or am I thinking of a different adversary?
What you're thinking of is magic. Oh, by the way, can we talk about how cool that was? The way they did the magic cameo and then bringing in the with Morph,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
those
the fact
those
that the possession led to us seeing the Dark Child version of magic.
yeah. And then my wife was actually asking me about that because she was like, "What the fuck are Morph's powers?" Because I think in the OG they definitely made him more of like a Mystique, right? He
Yeah, and
wasn't
this he can
doing
replicate physical
shape-shifting. Yeah.
powers.
So I can't remember. Did he have that ability in the comics, or they just kind of borrow? Are they blending him with Mimic?
He morphed out the claws, but that was the one thing, and the claws got cut
Yeah,
off by Wolverine, which looks like the most painful thing ever. I'm like, that's his flesh
that happened in the
in the cartoon, the old one.
X-Men in the X-Men movie.
Yeah, and I'm like, that seems terrifying.
Yeah, because it's like you don't get that shit back. Like, where did does that mean you lost some bone density? You got osteoporosis and shit.
But yeah, if I remember the adversary, you know what? I don't like doing this. I don't like having to pull up the Marvel wiki.
Well, we're fucking doing it.
The adversary is an ancient mystical entity described as a god or possibly demonic in nature, whose ultimate goal is the destruction of the present of the present universe to pave the way for its recreation. Often referred to as the Great Trickster, it manipulates through deception and seeks chaos for sheer enjoyment.
So this is like
So evil.
yeah. So yeah, it's not exactly who I was thinking of because the adversary that I was thinking of was like from like the Earth X, Universe X.
Yeah. This has a very personal connection to Forge, and
Okay.
you're going to find out in part two. I'm being very careful in the way I talk right now because I know what's going to happen. Because Bo DeMaio is kind of like me in terms of being an X-Men fan,
In
from
terms
what
of
I've seen
having
so far.
an OnlyFans account that's
No,
gonna
not,
get
not
exposed.
no, I don't have an OnlyFans account.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
I don't know. We'll see what happens when you get this new camera. Um, I'm a little tempted. Let's see.
I get shiny.
Start showing feet and shit. Um,
Wow. Okay, so moving on from that. But yeah, the bow wow. But from moving on from that, yeah, this is gonna get really interesting. And
he
a
looks so
lot of the
fucking
way
weird. I'm looking at him right now.
oh, he's creepy. I've always thought the Eversur's fucking creepy.
Okay.
And then he is
So
he's manipulative. Like he's
yeah,
like Loki by way of the devil.
it definitely seems very, very Loki-esque. Um, yeah, but that's not like try to spoil that too much because
Oh, I'm not. I'm not saying shit. I have so much that I could say that I'm just not saying right now.
so I'm sure we'll get a chance to like come back to it, but we gotta talk about episode 5 and we'll do that tomorrow.
All right. So with that, this has been the newest episode of Circuit 42. I'm Ian. This is Michael. And
Good night, everybody.
where can people find you on this crazy,
Oh,
wonderful, crazy wacky
speaking
place?
of, the Gambit voice actor liking my lovely little toy photo on Instagram you can find me at Four Ducks Pilot a Man Suit. And hopefully you can find me on Facebook as Michael Martinez. Hopefully you can't find me there. Because yeah, that's where I get even weirder.
So if you want to see Gambit liking Michael's little toy, Instagram, Four Dogs Pilot and Dancer. That's all I'm gonna
So
say.
where do we find you? I'm sure you have a very fancy geektastic handle.
Not at all. That's Ian McIntosh on Facebook and Circuit 40. Yeah. Ian McIntosh on Facebook and Instagram. And you can find Circuit 42 on well, Instagram, Facebook. Um, we were on Twitter, we can't stand the musk of it. Yeah. Um, but we are definitely on YouTube. We are on Spotify, we are on iTunes, we are on Google Play. We are on apparently all sorts of like podcast services I had no idea about. So that's pretty cool. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, with that, this has been the newest episode of Circuit 42. Thank you everyone for coming on and have a great night, everyone.